Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on three. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. Today we're talking to Dr. Allison Alford. She is a communications scholar, researcher, and author of the new book, Good Daughtering, the work you've always done, the credit you've never gotten, and how to finally feel like enough. Through more than a decade of research, Dr. Alford has become the leading expert on the unspoken role of the adult daughter, the invisible emotional glue of families, and the toll that being good takes on women's sense of identity and worth. I cannot wait for this one. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We've been doing the podcast for 10 years now, and I would have said I'm done having the how did I never think of this way moment, because we've talked about so many things. But this book gave me that moment in terms of, this is a whole other thing that is affecting my life in ways that I had not particularly quantified. So let's talk about defining the term daughtering.
Yeah, you're not alone in having that reaction to this idea of thinking of daughtering as something important and active. So when I think of daughtering, I think of the way that adult daughters function in a family to try to keep everybody together, hold everything together. It's not only active, but it's often invisible. It's the emotional, logistical, and mental work. And many times women are completely burnt out by it without even recognizing they're doing it.
Yeah, invisible, not just to other people, but almost to myself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things when I did the research and I spoke to women and I asked them about doing daughtering, they would start by saying something like, well, I don't do all that stuff, thinking that it was some really super special daughter does these, things where you're super close.
Does the most, right?
The most. They would say, well, I don't do all those things. And then we start going through, well, what do you do? And how do you show up in the relationship? And, oh, that thing you just mentioned, who does that? Oh, that's me. And by the end of our interview, they were like, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing a lot. It just wasn't things that I was clocking. It wasn't things I was counting. So if I wasn't counting it, for sure, my family, my partner, my friends, my kids, they weren't counting it either.
So let's break it down a little more, because we have talked about king keeping. We talk about the invisible workload all the time, but let's talk about the specific things that daughtering includes. There's doing, feeling, thinking, and being. You break it down. So explain to us some of the different things that might fall into each category.
So I like to talk about daughtering as a form of work, in the same way that as parents, when we show up to be a parent, we recognize we put our resources and our effort into it, and we're working when we're parenting. So daughters, I found through my research, do the work in these different types of ways. So that first one is the doing or the tasks. And this is the one that is the most visible that we notice. It's phone calls, it's showing up for a holiday, planning a holiday, or like the time I planned a big photo shoot for the whole family, intergenerational. So the doing is the tasks that are often related to when we're face to face with our parent. The thinking work is what you're doing, even if you're not around your parent. So it's like thinking of what they might need far in the future. It's worrying. It is being the CEO and managing or coordinating all the logistics for families. I spoke to one daughter who said she was saving money in a bank account that her parents didn't even know about, and it was for 25 years in the future when they would need it. That's taking up mental space. It's taking up some of her finances, but she's not doing it with her parent in that moment. She's doing it as a daughter. So that's the doing and the thinking. The next one is the feeling. So feeling work is emotion work or emotion labor. One of the best ways I think I do that in my family is knowing when to zip it, when to keep my mouth closed, to not have an argument. Or sometimes daughters go around and prevent or smooth arguments among family members as a service to the mom or dad. Like, I'm going to corral my younger sibling because that's going to make mom feel better. Emotion work is the way that we carry the load and feel so strongly. And it has to do with the guilt as well. And then the last one is being work, or what I call identity work. And it's the way we think about being a daughter for our entire life. What's our legacy of our family? How do we carry that? And in what ways do I show up as my mother's daughter or my father's daughter in life when I bring a certain dish to the potluck, or even after they're gone and they've passed? How is it I represent being their daughter all the way to the end of my life? So daughtering and daughterhood is my whole life long, and it doesn't have to be face to face with my parent.
And the point is, you say this work is so habituated, so normalized, that it's invisible to the women who are doing it often. It's just what we do, certainly to the people around us. And I'm thinking about how often this work is done for in-laws by the daughter-in-law, right? That it is assumed by everyone that the woman in the family is going to do enough work of connecting with the other woman in the family in order to keep that family relationship going as well.
Yeah, typically women are expected to do this type of work. And I think that as a society, culturally, we often think, well, it's because you're good at it. It's because women are good at connecting. It's because it's natural for women to have that yearn to connect with other women. You know, we could go far into the nature-nurture debate, but it's critical for us to recognize that women are trained to do this our entire lives. We're picking up how to do daughtering from our childhood when we're watching, and we are seeing what the stresses our mom goes through, our aunts, our friends' moms, as they do daughtering. And so when we get to adulthood, we think, well, I have to show up in that way or I'm not a good daughter. Everyone will judge me. My parent will be unhappy and it'll be all my fault because I just wasn't trying hard enough. And I think that a lot of what women are expected to do kind of gets conflated or confused with the maternal, that we're all supposed to be interested in providing care for everyone around us all the time.
We have talked to a couple of different women. I'm thinking right now of Jyoti Chand, who wrote a book called Fitting Indian about being first-generation daughters in the U.S., and that this theme comes up a lot. A good Indian daughter was something that all of the women in her family started sentences with. A good Indian daughter marries this way. A good Indian daughter does this. And it's interesting thinking of this book, how much I did not connect that to myself when she was talking about it. And do you have any experience of the immigrant experience and the kind of way this is held to the light almost for people?
Yeah, the cultural experiences around the world are very different. The expectations are different. I think what that reveals is that so much of what feels like we're being a good daughter or how to be a good daughter does come from cultural influence.
Yes.
From what our society says. So in the United States, we have a very economic mindset, and that does create a situation where often we feel like relationships are transactional and that we don't get credit unless we participate in a transaction. Like, I have to debit from myself, give to you to fill your bank account, and I have to do that until you're rich. And other cultures think differently about the ways that families show up, but whatever the way is that you are taught or trained to be a woman, to be a daughter, to be feminine, to be maternal, to be gracious and loving, that starts to become interwoven with your personal identity of, am I a good person if I don't show up in this role in this expected way? And I think that's kind of where we can do the work, is we can ask ourselves, what are the expectations? Where did they come from? What part of that do I agree with? And is that even still true in this generation or in this country or in this context or with these new technologies? And we deserve to reset that bar every once in a while.
I think in some ways, the fact that it's so verbal in Jyoti's experience, it allows for more questioning, where when it feels like it's just a default that you're not hearing out loud, you kind of march along without ever realizing the water that you're in.
Yeah, that's actually such a brilliant point, that because the lady you were speaking about, she's got it front and center that the daughter role is a critical role. And there are demands and difficulties to do with that. But part of what I've experienced, what I found in the research, and again, most of my research has been with American women, is the invisibility of it is what's causing us this crisis. Because if we can't notice it and talk about it, then we can't reframe it or reset it or share the difficulty of it, but also share the beauty of it with others around us.
Can we talk a little bit about your research and how you actually do it? Because you're a qualitative researcher, and this work is devalued. And so women do it, and then therefore it's also devalued because women do it, including by the women. So tell us about qualitative research and how it leads you to read between the lines sometimes.
When we think of scientific inquiry, a lot of times we think of a lab coat and we think of testing a hypothesis. Those are important things we learn the scientific method. But to have a hypothesis about any given scenario, you have to generally know how you expect something to behave. And then you can say, okay, my hypothesis is if I change it this way, change a variable, then it will change in that way. And I test it and I see if my hypothesis was right or not. Well, another form of scientific inquiry is asking, okay, I know almost nothing about this situation. So I want to go into this situation and just ask what is going on, rather than saying I'm going to test some sort of idea that I already have. So qualitative research goes in without those, what we call a priori assumptions, that I know what's going to happen. And instead, I just observe. So I could just sit around, at a park or at a cafe or a wine night and watch women with their mothers. You could do like a diary study where you have people write down everything they do for a week and you see like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Or what I did was interviews. And I found at the beginning, over 10 years ago, when I started doing interviews, you can ask someone a question and part of your results are what they say in response. But what I started to notice is what they don't say, what they didn't have language for, what they didn't notice that seemed kind of obvious to me, but they were dancing around. And if that happens one time, you think, okay, well, maybe I'm inserting some idea here. But as a scientist, you just keep going. You just keep asking more and more and more people until those patterns emerge. And I think what's so important and interesting about things we've learned from the 70s and 80s, these feminist scholars, the sociologists, psychologists, about things like kin keeping and kin work, is that the invisible or the unnamed can still be very real, and it can still be a thing. And that once we give it a name or we give someone language around it, we can see a shift in their thinking and in the mindset. And then that creates a ripple effect. So that's really what I've noticed in my research and what my hope is for this book as well.
We're talking to Dr. Allison Alford. Her new book is called Good Daughtering. When we come back, we're going to talk about the most common complaint that you've heard in your research. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today and let us surprise you.
Allison, tell us the #1 complaint that you heard in 10 years of research.
Ooh, the #1 complaint that I hear from women when we start talking about daughtering is my mom doesn't know me.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't really know me. She doesn't see me. And in some ways, women talk about playing a role or playing a part. And I asked one woman about this, like, why don't you just tell her that you're hurt by this, or that you want more, or that you're sad about your sibling? And she said to me, I don't want her to have that pain, so I just keep the pain instead. And so part of what I learned is that there's a big disconnect in communication around daughtering and between daughters and their parents. And there's something that seems to happen in adulthood where, as the younger member of the family, the daughter becomes an adult, she sort of feels like she becomes this martyr and has to take on all of these things, and that she owes it to her parent. That's that economic mindset, to do this, to carry these burdens. And then what happens is those burdens become so heavy that it's difficult to see the joy and the beauty and the value that comes out of being in a family. And many women get burnt out and then pull away, which breaks the whole family system, and it's not really good for anybody.
It's that invisibility, I think, of it, and things that you take on. I mean, Amy's book, Happy to Help, has a lot of this element of...
Right. It's a personal version of this very thesis.
I am sort of secretly taking on a huge amount of work that is unseen. And then people almost resent me for taking on that work because, oh, you're actually doing a lot of things that people don't even care about, and you're such a martyr, and wah, wah. I mean, this isn't Amy, but taking this to its farthest conclusion. But it's kind of a catch-22. Like, if you don't do it, people miss it. But if you do it, people are like, oh, there goes Margaret again doing her stupid thing. That's, you know, rah, rah, rah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like going into your household and making a big giant meal, and you clean the whole kitchen and you take out the trash and you plate up the food and you take it right to the people. And on the one hand, you wanted to do that. You like cooking. You like having a beautiful home, you know, and then on the other hand, you feel like, oh, when I handed them the food, they just weren't grateful enough. Or they said to me, Mom, come sit down and watch the show. You don't need to be in there cleaning, you know, and I'm like, And it seems to be kind of metaphorically like what you're saying, we want to show up. I do think that's true too. Daughters want to be in families. We want to be helpful. We're so smart and with it. We're at the peak of our lives and we're like, I see how to fix this. I see that if I just pick up this, and this life would be so much better for all these people. But after we pick it up, then comes this sort of like, I want them to be very grateful. I want them to notice. And also sometimes our parents are kind of like, I never wanted you to pick that up. I never wanted you to pick up my difficulties. I want you to fly or to soar. And then we're thinking, well, I can't soar because then I'd soar away from you.
I got too much on my back. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of one of the things I see in that cycle is what we're really missing is clarity in talking about the experience of doing daughtering and how it feels and what we like about it and what we don't like about it. We're just sort of doing it and then assuming what other people are thinking or expecting, but we're not really asking them and they're not clarifying for us what they would like us to do or not do.
Right. But I feel like it's not just like, oh, you're such a martyr and you're just assuming that they don't care. They don't care. They don't mom makes dinner. Mom is a machine that makes dinner for me and folds my laundry. That is often what happens. And when your labor gets ignored, then on top of it, you feel bad about yourself that you're putting out all this effort and nobody even seems to see it. Therefore, what must be required is more effort, right? That I must not be doing it well enough or enough. And it isn't that you're imagining that they're ignoring you. They are ignoring you because it's invisible and they don't get it, right? Nobody's a bad person in this, but it definitely isn't. You're putting in your head this story that they don't notice. No, they don't notice.
Right.
And then I'm going to quote you. The biggest danger of ignoring this unpaid labor is that as women, we can lose sight of ourselves and agree with the world that we're not trying hard. We're not worthy. We're not a good enough daughter. So on top of all this, you're getting this message that for everything you do, it's never enough.
Yeah, a little bit of gaslighting ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think the antidote to that is what I call narrating daughtering. And I think this is helpful too in households for moms or for spouses, Once labor starts to become invisible, and when it's invisible, it's honestly ignored. It is taken for granted and by us as well. The antidote to that is to narrate it. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm thinking about. This is where I'm spending my money, my time, my resources. On the flip side, would somebody else say, well, that sounds like complaining, And maybe, grumpy people are going to say what they're going to say. But I love the quote from Carl Weick, where he says, how do I know what I think till I see what I say? What that means is once I say stuff out loud, I can kind of re-examine what I said and then think about what I think about that. So a lot of times when we keep it in our brain and we don't say it or write it or share it or make a TikTok about it or do a Substack, we can gaslight ourselves. We get lost in our own invisibility. We forget whether we think that thing is cool or not. We forget whether we spent 5 minutes on it or 50 minutes on it. Part of the way we can get out of that cycle is by talking out loud. And it can be talking or it can be writing, verbalizing what we're thinking, what we're doing. And that's why I say narrating. Narrating is, this is what I did as a daughter today. I was thinking about this. I put money in that account. I made a plan for this. I looked at hotels for that. And when we start to say stuff out loud, we start to give credit to it. And even if that just begins with me giving credit to me, that's a great place to start.
We recently had a snow day in New York, and I had a bunch of kids over for sledding, and my husband couldn't get to his office, so he was working at home. So I shoveled off the deck so that I could put up a tent with a heater in it so that the kids could sled and then have snacks in the tent rather than bringing all the snow inside. And then I sat down with the kids and instructed them how this was going to work. And then I made cinnamon rolls and hot cocoa with milk, and I set it up in the tent with the heater. And then I guided them, like, where do you take your snow pants off? And I said to my husband, I'm really glad you were home to see this. Like, this is what it's like to run a snow day. Now, do we need an outdoor heated tent for snacks? We don't. But when 12 kids are sitting in there and having cocoa and talking to each other, and they're like, we can't wait to do this next time. Like, I'm creating a home where my children's friends want to be. And I said at the end of the day, Physically, I'm exhausted from doing it physically. Mentally, I'm exhausted from like, no, don't come in that door. That's not the door we want the mud coming in. You got to come around. I think you're right that saying it out loud and saying like, listen, is this extra? It is extra. We don't need maybe the cinnamon rolls and the hot cocoa could have just been made with water or whatever. I want it to be done nicely, but also see how much work goes into what for everyone else was like a day of sledding. That there's one ringmaster magician making that day happen. And I'm going to sit you all down and make you acknowledge it.
Actually, it's so smart to bring that up because there's some recent research that says part of being a family is performing family. And in a way, I feel like that's like saying, okay, if I want my kids to do family with me when they're older, I need to talk out and perform and show what is family? What does it mean? What does family mean to us? What does family do? What are the things that make us a family? And that's really helpful, especially in a lot of different family forms, where people aren't always looked at by society as part of the family, whether it's a neighbor who comes over or a step this and in-law that. But I think in many ways what you were saying, Margaret, is like being a mom isn't just the doing of momming. You performed momming and you appreciated your partner's congratulations or notice. As a daughter, I'll go back to like doing the photo shoot. My sister and I planned this big family vacation. We went to Hershey, Pennsylvania.
So fun.
Yeah, it was great. They had a wedding anniversary, a special anniversary that year. So we wanted to do a photo shoot. We all put on strawberries because they had strawberry bridesmaids dresses at their wedding. And I bought and paid for quite a bit of this. And I had to think in advance to book a photographer and find a venue. And then we had to change for the weather. And then afterwards, I had to pay for the photos, get them printed, wrap them up for Christmas. And part of that is about when people come to my mom and dad's house, they'll see these family photos on the wall, or we were able to put them on a Christmas card or put them on Instagram. We didn't have to stand together in a field to feel like a family, but the photo taking and sharing becomes performing family. And that's for others to look at us and see. And I mean, it's an interesting nuance to the idea of how do we make our labor visible and how do we feel like a family? We have to show it off a little bit.
And my example wasn't daughtering, but it makes me think how I do that with my family, but I don't do that as much with my daughtering roles.
Exactly.
And it seems to me that the trick is to turn the snow day snacks in a tent or the family photo. That is those are very visible, wonderful gifts you're giving somebody that would be hard for them to ignore. And walk this a little bit back towards Taco Tuesday and that you call your mom 3 times a week or whatever. That stuff, it matters. It matters just as much. And you shouldn't have to have a ticker tape parade level of performing daughtering or motherhood to feel like your work is worthwhile.
Right. It doesn't have to be, a heated tent and cinnamon rolls to be a good mom or to be a good daughter. Right. But I think that there's something to it. And so I'll share it one way that I narrate my daughtering and how you can do it in small ways. I will call my mom and I'll say to her, well, I had 10 minutes, so I just really wanted to use those to call you. And I try to just say like, I'm doing this for you or for us, or this is my gift to you. I'm kind of saying why I'm using my time that way or how I thought about using my time. So it's not just like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm eating this. I'm doing that. I say something that kind of like points at the interaction that we're having. Does that make sense?
It does.
It totally makes sense. As Margaret said, we had a snow day recently and my dad has died, so my mom lives alone. And one of my sisters sent pictures to the rest of us because she lives nearby. We didn't even talk about that, like the levels of daughtering for people who live nearby and people who don't. She showed us pictures of the walk that she shoveled. And having just prepared this episode, I thought, oh, this is it. She's doing the work. She's showing me, who lives a couple hours away, look what I did. I did this work. Appreciate me. And I do, and I did, but I never would have thought about it if she hadn't sent me those photos.
Yeah. And so beautiful, I think, to partner with our siblings. And it's very easy to turn something like that, Amy, into feeling guilty. Like my sister wants me to feel guilty about that.
Oh, you're so great. Right.
Oh, okay. I
Right.
see. I get it. I guess I'll send you $10 for pizza. So we're equal, or we're even or something like that. It's so nice when there are siblings who can partner because we can't all live close to our parent. I have the same situation, Amy. My sister lives down the street from my parents, and I live farther away. And over the last couple of years, she and I have done a lot to make visible all the ways that we want to show up and care for our parent. And we try to give each other credit. One of the things my sister said to me after we were around for a holiday, she said, "You just try so hard. Like you just keep engaging in that type of talking or the funny joke that's not really funny, but you laugh because you're trying to be nice." And she said about herself, she's like, "I just can't do that. I just can't try that hard." So she felt like she wasn't showing up emotionally or that she wasn't performing sweet or fun or kind or whatever. And I said back to her, "But I don't cook anything. Like you cook things and you walk them down the street and you check on them if they're snowed in. And we don't each have to do everything." That's the beauty of siblings and the pain point for the only kids. We can do what we're best at and kind of give each other kudos for the things the other one's good at and also help each other know what nobody needs to be doing and we can drop.
We're talking to Dr. Allison Alford. She is the author of Good Daughtering, and we'll be right back.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that, taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. So I really like that idea of we have different strengths, right? I go big extra at big times, but the day-to-day, I'm very disorganized and I forget to go to like the lunch I planned. And I think that I'm one of 4, Amy's one of 6. The issue of sharing daughtering and including some sunning in that, not like the sun overhead, including the boys in that effort. is something as an adult that takes a lot of work. And we've talked about this with marriage, that actually you have to sit down with your partner, maybe once a month, maybe once a week, and be like, okay, who's doing what? Where are the finances? You're running an operation together, and that we just sort of forget this. We fall into our roles, and then we hate each other's faces 15 years in. As we start to talk about how to fix this, is the central idea of visibility and putting visibility and sending the pictures of the shoveled snow or saying out loud, this is what I've done for mom this week. Is that where we're heading to?
Yeah, great question. I'm assuming that y'all have talked about Eve Rodsky's book, Fair Play.
We have indeed. We've had her on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, she's so great. And she was the first person to reach out and want to support my book because it's very similar, this idea of invisible labor and how do we make it visible?
It is very similar. If you haven't heard of Eve Rodsky, we'll link to her episode. She talks about fair play in marriage. And so It's a nice combining of these.
With the family. Yeah, like a home, right.
Which we call social reproductive labor in the whatever researchy world, because somebody has to take out the trash and do the laundry, or like you can't actually live. And I think the difference with daughtering is that many of the parts of daughtering we're talking about, I'm 43, I don't actually do anything for my parents that they need to live, like to survive, or for their house to not be dirty. So there is a bit, in beautiful ways, there's a bit more leeway that I can do less, or I can drop some things, because different from parenting or wifing, husbanding, or whatever, no one is dependent on me financially or to be alive. So I have a little bit of relief for that part as a daughter. But you were asking, what do we do? Do we look at what everyone's doing? Do we look at what the sun is doing? And so it's part of the process. That's what I'll say. Reframing your life and doing things differently, part one, is noticing it ourselves, giving credit to all the myriad ways that we show up as daughters across a lifespan, and not thinking that daughtering is for 55-year-old daughters with 80-year-old mothers and fathers. But daughtering starts all the way back in adulthood, when adulthood starts and we begin separating from our parents. So the first part is the noticing. The second part is, once we've kind of seen the matrix or we've seen the spectrum, then we ask ourselves, who do I want to be? How do I want to be as a daughter? Do I want to have to try to go for this mythical good daughter, unattainable standard who, is sweet all the time and is visiting her parents every weekend? Or do I think that doesn't really work for me or my lifestyle or my personality, and I'm okay with that? So we kind of have to calibrate, like, what would a good life be like for me? And I get to decide, and I have agency and choice. And then the third part is trying to make that happen once I've decided. And that might be through narrating, through making something visible, partnering with siblings, talking to my parent, or things like making boundaries, pulling back, and doing things differently going forward than just the way it's always been done.
You said something in the book about calibrating. Once this stuff is clear to you, this is work, it's being done by me. I assumed it maybe had to be done by me because I'm female. Maybe it doesn't. And then you say you calibrate the level of involvement and intensity that is needed in a given moment, and whether you have all the resources to meet that need in the moment. Because, there are moments it's like, do I really want to bring the baby over to mom so she can see him today because he's got a stuffy nose? That's one kind of thing. And then there's the boiler broke again. I think my parents need to move. Do I have, and then it's okay to ask yourself, do I have the level of involvement and intensity that is required? Do I, in my own moment, with my own imperfect set of needs, have the resources that is required? That it's okay to be that granular about it and ask yourself that question.
Absolutely. I mean, context matters, situation matters. I think that helps us get out of the idea of assumptions that the female child has to do everything. We need to get out of that assumption and think, actually, the person who needs to do something is the right person for that moment. And so if it's going to be me, then I have to say, what's my battery level? Do I have battery for this? So one daughter told me, a hurricane was coming and her parents were already out of town, but she knew that their house needed to have the windows boarded up. So she had the battery for that. And it was a big payoff, right? To not have shattered windows that then she would have to fix because her parents were out of town. So she went to go do that. And she had the battery and the context called for it, right? Like shoveling the snow in the ice storm. But then on a regular daily basis, do you think, do I have the battery for an hour phone call every week? No, I don't. I don't have the battery. My kids are playing soccer. My boss is crazy on me at work. It's tax season. Like, I don't have it in this month. But I can see a window where a season will open up where either their need changes or my availability changes. I think that in some ways is what we call the sandwich generation, you know, and it's important to recognize that. I just don't like women to think the sandwich generation only applies if our parents are ill or elderly.
That's such a good point.
All the time that they need something, like their windows boarded up, or they need our perspective on whether they should move their houses or update this account or whatever. And it's nice to be needed. But one of the things I want to point out, I just got myself back around to this idea to remember it, is that the research actually shows that when our parents are elderly, the person who is most likely to show up among the children, male, female, age, eldest daughter, youngest, whatever, the actual research shows that the person who does the most caregiving is A, the one who lives the closest, and or B, the one with the economic advantage to do so. So that would be like if a sibling lives close to mom and dad and they're retired, or they have a spouse who works and they don't work. So they have time to go over there versus in my situation, I live farther away from my parent and I work every day, all day. So I don't have, so I have economics. Maybe I could send money, but I can't just take time off to go over there. And once we know that research, we can say, oh, maybe I just thought it was all daughters and only daughters and always the eldest daughter. But it really doesn't have to be, and it doesn't always make sense for it to be.
I think even recognizing the idea of daughtering, I recently had a situation where in some chaos and some emergency, I was asked, okay, this week we need to address X, Y, and Z. And I looked at my week and I said, I really can't. I just am looking at my calendar. I cannot do it. I don't have a free moment to do it. And the person I think was disappointed in me hung up the phone. And I felt awful. Like I'm still feeling it in my body, that feeling of I was asked for specific help and I said no. I probably cried over it at a certain point. But my response was extremely reasonable. And the ask was not entirely reasonable. But even the idea of daughtering is helping me reframe that interaction right now in my head as, okay, this was something that was asked of me that was not possible at the moment. I have to sit with the bad feeling. But this is not just a story about me being a selfish, bad daughter.
Yeah, for sure. And when we have siblings, you have a lot of siblings. I have just one sibling. I think sometimes a situation comes up where a sibling, it could be a neighbor, it could be an aunt, it could be somebody has noticed something about your parent and they think you need to handle it.
Sounds familiar. Yes.
You might think either, no, nobody needs to handle that. In fact, my sister often says to me, we don't need to get involved in that, which is really helpful. And because I know that we're partnering, I try very hard not to take that offensively, but I have to work on that. Or if a neighbor comes to me, and says, oh, I noticed your parents this, they could really blah, blah, blah. It's so hard not to feel guilty about that. But we have to realize, like, we don't have to take that on. We don't have to take the shame. We don't have to take the guilt. We don't have to agree with everybody else about what level of stuff needs to be done or how urgently. And maybe a fix to your situation, Margaret, is responding when you could get to it, right?
Yes.
When you might have bandwidth for it. And sometimes the answer to that is 2 years from now. Like, okay, we are going to figure out some retirement thing. And you can say, well, our parents are 58. Let's talk about that in 2 years when I don't have a newborn. And so maybe just putting a pin in it, but that lets them know you hear them. And maybe there's some appreciation back. I see that you're trying to daughter really well or son really well. I don't think this thing is necessary in this way right now, but I am grateful for you thinking of them and worrying about them. I'm just not able to participate in this project right now. It kind of takes it to project management level instead of an identity level.
So smart.
I just wanted to say that if you are listening to this episode and this resonated with you, because of course it has, that this book, I always, when I'm preparing an episode, I highlight the parts that I want to make sure that we talk about. And I highlighted like the entire book. This is what I think, this is ridiculous. I wanted to talk about every sentence in this book. So I just want to give a special shout out. This book is a really worthwhile purchase. It walks you through this problem. It even has scripts at the end. I'm going to have a difficult conversation about how I'm not going to be able to come over after work as much as I used to. Say, as an example, really clear scripts on how to build that conversation. I just think it's such a eye-opening, useful thing for any daughter to read this book. So I just wanted to say that. We're going to put the link in the show notes to buy the book. I just think this is one you got to buy for yourself. Dr. Alford, what do you hope the reader takes away from this book?
I really appreciate you saying that. That warms my heart. Here's my book. I think it's so pretty.
It's very pretty. My favorite color.
I really did think a lot about this message, and my goal with this research has always been to bring it to women so that you can have better relationships and better lives. It's important to recognize a couple of things. One, if you're in a trauma situation or you have narcissistic parents or drugs or abuse or whatever, that takes a specialist. And that's pretty far at the end of the spectrum from, I think, what we're trying to talk about here, which is the everyday person who struggles but would like to optimize it and would like to just notice it and see it. I think it's so important to recognize that just because we're talking about daughtering doesn't mean there isn't a thing called sonning and that sons aren't doing things. My husband is such a great example of sonning, and I've learned a lot from him. And I have a teenage son who I want to be great at sonning me in the future. But the difference is the cultural expectation and the weight. And ultimately that comes down to patriarchal expectations for women's maternal bodies, right? And we could go pretty far into that, but I just want women to have a resource and say, oh my gosh, daughtering's real. I'm doing it. I'm already doing so much of it. I am pretty good at this, and then I'm going to give myself a little break and not beat myself up so much.
That is music to our ears. Dr. Allison Alford's new book is Good Daughtering, The Work You've Always Done, The Credit You've Never Gotten, and How to Finally Feel Like Enough. We will put the link to buy this book in the show notes. You can buy it wherever you buy books. And Allison, tell our listeners where else they can find you and your work.
My website is daughtering101.com, and all my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, are at daughtering101.
This was such a great conversation. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allison.